Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Duluth, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. You can't make this up. Journalist arrested under UK anti-terror law hours after criticizing it. I criticized the Terrorism Act after getting on a plane, then got arrested under the Terrorism Act upon landing. This is real.
Oh, he went against the establishment. They said that in those words, right? Speaking against the establishment.
We know Richard Meadors. He's been a guest on this show, but not often enough. I've had him on a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. A Syrian British independent journalist who defends Palestinians' right to resist Israeli apartheid, occupation, and other crimes, said this week that he was recently arrested at London's Heathrow Airport and held for nearly 24 hours for allegedly running afoul of the highly controversial anti-terrorism law critics say is used to silence legitimate dissent. Now, Glenn Greenwald's former husband was also arrested under that. We're going to get to that in a second. Meadors, who is known for his work opposing U.S., British, and Israeli war crimes in the Middle East and for his advocacy for former imprisoned WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, said, I criticized the Terrorism Act before getting on the plane and then got arrested under the Terrorism Act upon landing. You can't make this up. In a nearly 9-minute video posted Monday night on Twitter, the social network formerly known as Medhurst said that on Thursday, as I landed in London Heathrow Airport, I was immediately escorted off the plane by 6 police officers who were waiting for me at the end. They arrested me, not detained. They arrested me under Section 12 of the Terrorism Act of 2000 and accused me of allegedly expressing an opinion or belief that is supportive of a prescribed organization, but wouldn't explain what this meant. So they're saying...
Oh, that's my next question. What does that mean?
So what they're saying is that he's supporting Hamas, which are terrorists. That's how I interpret that. The controversial law criminalized that. That's how they got... the Jackson the Hair Hinkle off YouTube. They said he was propping up terrorists inside Russia. The controversial law criminalizes anyone who invites support for a proscribed organization or expresses an opinion or belief that is supportive of such a group. So if you even support Hamas, that's against the law. They don't have
to tell you. We don't know it's Hamas because they don't have to tell you what proscribed group you support.
Right.
And I'll bet you it's not even the level of Hamas because I've seen him before. It could be like he supported Putin because he said Russia.
That's right.
It could be anything. They won't tell you.
So he's facing up to 14 years in prison. Here he is talking with Glenn Greenwald, whose husband, let's remember.
On Thursday of last week, you flew to the UK and you were met by 6 police officers at the plane. So before you could even get off the plane and get to immigration, and they essentially placed you under arrest, under physical custody of the UK police under a terrorism law of 2000, though they didn't really explain why. But you did about a 9-minute video going into great detail about the treatment to which you were subjected, which we will link to so that people can go watch the full story of that. But in lieu of that, can you tell me what it is during this arrest that lasted 24 hours that you were able to learn about why it is that you were being arrested?
Well, just from the get-go, I just want to say that I'm out on bail, effectively. So, I'm not at liberty to divulge exactly what they asked me and go too much into detail.
Let me just ask you, are you out on bail with restrictions? Have you had to surrender your passport? Are you able to leave the country?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I was released on unconditional bail. I was given my passport back. The thing is, I do have to go back in 3 months and surrender myself to the police station. Although I don't feel that the bail really is unconditional because, essentially everything and anything I say, anything I do, it can be used against me. So, it's like I think what they wanted to achieve is to silence me as a journalist and stop me doing my work. So, they say it's unconditional, but it's not really unconditional, is it?
As people know, and I talked about this a little bit, as you of course know, I'm very familiar with this terrorism law, the terrorism of 2000 law, because my husband was notoriously detained under it when coming back to Rio through London after having spent time with my reporting colleague Laura Poitras, and they were threatening him the whole time to put him under arrest as well. I think the only reason they didn't is because the Brazilian government was so aggressive in demanding his release, but it was an act of great intimidation. And he ended up suing and obtained a ruling that the provision under which he was detained, which was Section 5, as I recall, was unconstitutional when applied to journalists. The section under which I understand you were charged is a different section, which is Section 12. And reading that, it seems to me like it's intended to criminalize opinion, specifically opinion or reporting that is deemed to advance the agenda of a group that's designated as a terrorist organization by the UK. Is that a correct understanding of the law under which you were detained? And do you have any details about what they said you did that you can share with us that constitute a violation in their eyes of that law?
Well, to be honest, I thought that they had nicked me under Schedule 7.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Schedule 7. Yeah, it's been a while. Exactly.
Yeah, I thought it was Schedule 7 because that's when they make you answer every question. You have to hand over the passwords for your devices on the spot, and then at least, if I can put it in quotation marks, you get to leave afterwards, right? You're not actually like arrested, and that didn't really dawn on me until quite a bit. That I wasn't being detained. I was actually being arrested. Like unbelievable. And it wasn't Schedule 7. It was Section 12. And so I mean I'd never heard of it, and even though I was quite critical of the Terrorism Act because it had in general. Now I'm not speaking just about Section 12. I'm speaking in general. The whole point of it is that the threshold for any of the offences that they put in there are so low that journalists and that's who the target audience usually the targets usually are, can just be picked up and detained and arrested. And this it's just, don't get me wrong, there are some parts of the Terrorism Act that are actually made for fighting terrorism, which are needed in any country. But the problem is that when you use this against journalists instead of actual terrorists, it becomes a political tool. I think we can all agree on that. And the threshold with this thing, the way that they explained it to me, and from what I gathered, is that it is really so utterly low that anything, I mean, can be considered a criminal. It can be skewed, it can be twisted into an offense of the highest order. Because we should remember that this is I wasn't nicked for burglary or something. They took me off a plane for terrorism. I mean, I still can't even believe it. It's insane, really.
So they're coming after people. This is what they do. They started with Lula, then they did it to Bolsonaro, then they did it to Imran Khan, then they're doing it to Julian Assange was the first one, and now Edward Snowden, and now they did it to whoever, Donald Trump. I know it sounds funny, but the establishment donor class didn't want him to be president, and so they used lawfare against him. That's what this is. This is using lawfare to shut people up. They're doing it to the guy who's the founder of Telegram for the same reason, right? And so this is what the establishment in the West does now. This is their MO, is they lock people up and they threaten them. And this is chilling, right? So this makes me afraid to go to the UK. I'll tell you that. It makes me afraid to go to it certainly would. They could charge me with this. And so he says, I categorically and utterly reject. I like when people categorically reject. I can't wait till I have to. I like rejecting things, but to categorically reject it.
No.
Oh, yeah. I am not a terrorist. I have no criminal record prior to this incident. I'd never been detained in my entire life. I'm a product of the diplomatic community, and I'm raised to be anti-war. Both of my parents won Nobel Peace Prizes for their work in the United Nations Peacekeepers. Didn't know that. They had a tremendous effect on he was born with a Nobel Peace Prize spoon in his mouth.
Well, that's suspicious.
That's very suspicious. They had a tremendous effect on my worldview and outlook and instilled in me the importance of diplomacy, international law, and peace. Medhurst said that he was searched, handcuffed, taken in a police van to a station where he was searched again, fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in solitary confinement. His phone and work equipment were seized. When he was questioned why he'd been arrested, the police would say something like, well, we're just the arresting officers. We don't really know. No one in the world knew that what had happened to me or where I was. I had to ask like 4 or 5 different guards for several hours until I finally received a call. In total, I spent almost 24 hours in detention. At no point whatsoever was I allowed to speak to a family member or a friend. After waiting 15 hours, I was finally interviewed by 2 detectives. We cannot call ourselves a democracy as long as reporters are dragged off of planes and detained and treated like murderers. I am disgusted that I am being politically persecuted in my own country. Chris Hedges had some thoughts. He said to arrest of him, who has been one of the most ardent critics of the genocide in Gaza and Israeli apartheid state at Heathrow Airport, is part of the steady march towards the criminalization of journalism, something all of us, including Medhurst, understood lay at the heart of the long persecution of Julian Assange. Where the norm was for the police to detain people for questioning under Schedule 7, Medhurst became the first journalist in Britain to be arrested under Section 12 of the Draconian Terrorism Act. After being taken into custody by 6 police officers, having his electronic equipment seized and questioned, he was placed in solitary confinement for almost 24 hours. He was released on a pre-charged bail. He will remain under investigation for at least 3 months and faces the prospect of being charged. So, not good. The arrest is about paralyzing his work. and the work of all who call out Israel for its mass slaughter. It is an ominous warning to any who stand up for Palestinian rights. It is designed to have a chilling effect on reporting that elucidates Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza and increasingly the West Bank, as well as the active collaboration in this extermination of the Palestinian people by the United States and the UK governments. Medhurst's arrest has nothing to do with fighting terrorism, at least for those who still believe journalism is not terrorism. If we do not vigorously oppose Medhurst's arrest, if we do not denounce the use of terrorism laws to attempt to silence journalists, including the Scottish journalist Greg Murray, the Grey Zone News correspondent Kit Clarenberg, and the late David Miranda, who was working with Glenn Greenwald on the files leaked by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden, Medhurst's arrest will become the norm. So that's the world we're living in, and it just happened to the. Now, a lot of people have bad feelings about the guy who. Well, we're going to cover that in a second. But
wait, Jimmy.
Yeah.
You know, in England right now, they're arresting people and they're bragging about how they're releasing. You know, their prisons are overcrowded.
Yeah.
So if you tweet the wrong thing, they're going to make room for you. And by the way, this is a rep of their police saying this. They're gonna release somebody to put you in prison for your tweet. And then they go, yeah, in the East, and this is on their news, the East Asian gangs are going to give them a cold greeting. So basically they're telling you you're going to be attacked in prison in some mysterious bad way, which we can guess what it is, for tweeting wrong. They're releasing people who are in there for real crimes to make room for you. That's just what they're doing to regular, everyday citizens for tweets. So what do you think they're going to do to a journalist? Like, they're openly doing this now.
For retweets. Not even a tweet, but a retweet.
Yeah, for retweets.
So even if you don't tweet it out, if you retweet it, we covered this at the live show a week ago, Friday. I don't know if I dropped that. I'm looking for it. Right? Do you see it on?
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either. Whatever happened to that video? We did it. We covered it. I don't see it. I'm looking at it. I'm looking for it right now, but I don't see it. Huh. Can you? Yeah, that's weird. No. We definitely covered it. We covered that. Did I not? We covered it.
Yeah, we covered. I remember because Mike McRae did that British guy.
Yeah, he did the British. That's right. So that didn't make it into a video. So, can someone check that out for me? And
I think during a break when we're bringing on our next guest, let's talk to Andrew.
So yeah, it's chilling. We're going to cover another story later today about what they're doing to the guy who runs the Telegram.
Oh yeah, right.
And no, a lot of people have bad feelings for that guy and hatred for him because of other things.
Yeah, right.
But you have to be able to separate the garbage things that guy has done from what they're not coming after him for the things you hate him for. They're coming after him for the same thing they're coming after Richard Medhurst, the same thing they're coming after Imran Khan, the same reason they're coming after Julian Assange. Because you're going against the establishment and the deep state and the war machine. That's why they're coming after that guy.
Well, if the guy had a principle, it turned out, okay? So people with principles are always on the wrong end of everything, like every single time. So he left because he was mad about the Russia thing. Then he comes here and it's very you know, a tree by its fruits. I think that's a apt saying, because look at what comes out of whatever at the end of whatever anybody does. Like, that's what's important, not what you hate them for before. Like, what ended up happening because of what they did.
Right.
I'm like, should I have been on Telegram this whole time?
I'm not.
Was that the last thing where you're not being spied on?
People would always say yes. Hey, do you get stressed because your monthly income just doesn't seem to cover the bills anymore? Well, you're not alone. Most Americans feel this way every day. Everything is still ridiculously expensive, and we're all reaching more and more for the credit cards to cover the basics like childcare, insurance, power, and food. It's tough. If you're feeling this way, you need to call our friends over at American Financing. They're helping hardworking Americans just like you tap into their home's equity to pay off their high interest debt and even create some additional savings to be ready for whatever life throws your way. With interest rates dropping, A company like American Financing that never charges upfront or hidden fees and is the perfect partner to help you get into a better financial position. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving homeowners over $800 a month on average. Waiting is not an option. Call today. You may delay 2 mortgage payments. That's call 888-804-0303. That's 888-804-0303 or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Jimmy. Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Duluth, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.